did a recent study of our sister Claire, who, as you know, has often had short shrift in relationship to Francis. But as I'm sure many of the Franciscan sisters know, perhaps her most common single metaphor that she uses in her not extensive writings, her most common metaphor is the mirror. She uses it in a number of different contexts. Now, I would assume a poor Clare in the 13th century, I don't know if they even would have had mirrors or allowed to have mirrors, but she clearly recognized on some soul level that whatever was happening was a reflected experience. It wasn't something you achieve or succeed at. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't an accomplishment. It's like the moon, and that was always the feminine symbol, of course. It was a reflected glory. Or as Meister Eckhart put it, the eyes with which we finally do look back at God are the very same eyes with which God first looked at us. All we do, brothers and sisters, is return the compliment. That's all. We get it and we bounce it back. We don't know how to love. We don't. And so we need vulnerable, weak, humble, wonderful people to teach us how. What it means, I think, to do the work of spirituality, to be present so encounter can happen, so we can change and keep growing. And I'll make it very practical, is you have to keep at least 3 centers open at the same time. You have to keep the headspace open. You can't close down with all kind of opinions and absolutes and moral conclusions by which you've divided the world into the good guys and the bad guys. That's just mental arrogance. And what teaches you how not to do that is contemplation, where you don't divide the field of the moment into what you like and what you don't like. You say, it is what it is, what it is, what it is. A missionary has to learn to say that or they go crazy. It is what it is, and it's so damn wrong, and it's so unjust, and it's so absurd, and yet I can't change it. And then we find in ourselves, we Americans who are used to changing everything and fixing everything, and you meet these lovely people, you could tell the stories much better than I, and they seem to learn it quickly, much quicker than we do, to say, it is what it is, Father. You say, how can you say it is what it is? It shouldn't be what it is. You see, they don't have to go off to Franciscan novitiates to learn contemplation. The main methods of human transformation, as I told the class this morning, are great love and great suffering. And those have been available to humanity since the beginning of time. And those who go on those paths of great love and great suffering, I'm sorry if this sounds heretical, but it's obvious to me they get it. And it really doesn't matter what religion they are. I've met too many people of Christ consciousness who clearly live unitive consciousness in union with God and neighbor, who don't have the right words. You and I have the right words, but far, far too often Christians don't have the right experience. They just argue about their words. My words are better than your words. I've got the one holy Catholic apostolic words. And we're back into this. Church as correct words when the Word became flesh. And we're the religion of the Word become flesh. But we reversed the process of the incarnation. We said, well, nice job, Jesus, but we'll go back to the words. We're not sure that we like your flesh. We're not sure that we like incarnation. But those are the ones who understand. Those are the ones who know how to return the gaze because they know how to receive the gaze. And that first delightful gaze between mother and child ends up being the very pattern of the universe. And you allow eventually everything receive yours and to return yours. And it's not an absurd universe anymore. It's not a lonely universe anymore. It's not a profane universe anymore. It's one world. It's one world, and it's all supernatural, and it's all sacred. And so you don't spend your life trying to live in comfortable, manicured, perfect suburbia, because you find that the mystery is much more apparent, much more visible, much more obvious in the world of disorder when you stop fighting it. And that was given to me by Jesus. I don't know, seminary didn't give it to me. Seminary sort of trained me in a love of order. I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. Stephen can tell you I'm always on time. I'm fairly clean. I know how to follow rules. I'm really rather orderly guy, you know. And yet I open the Gospels and I see that our Jesus is totally comfortable with disorder. Just totally comfortable with those on the edge. He makes the heroes of almost all of his stories someone who is other than his own religion. He's always finding God in Samaritans and lepers and prostitutes and drunkards and tax collectors. Now we live in a church that seems to say we can't even eat with them. We can only eat with bona fide Roman Catholics, you know. So I always say it appears Jesus changed his rules while he was here. He ate with sinners, prostitutes, drunkards, and tax collectors. Because he wasn't uncomfortable with disorder, but we are. And religion has largely become a love of social order and a maintenance of social order. And so anyone who doesn't fit into our dualistic division of the good people and the bad people is always deemed lost or useless or a waste of time. That's why we need missionaries. And that's why we need reverse missionaries who come back and tell us all, it's not true, it's not true, it's not like you think it is. So don't waste your life hiding behind fences of order and security and supposed normality. Because there's something bigger happening. There's something better happening. There's something Christ happening. That's what we're about. That's what the gospel's about. And I thank you for doing it, for coming here tonight. Maybe most of us are not formal missionaries, but you came here to support and to believe in those who are. Let me just read Rumi again, hoping in the second reading it'll make a little more sense and it'll allow you to move beyond words to the unified field, to the depths of everything where God is always, always apparent. To be your own kind of missionary outside of our own little self-created comfort zones. Because one thing we know, brothers and sisters, if it's the true Christ, it's always going to be bigger than we expected. Augustine said, si comprehenderis non est Deus. If you comprehend it, it's not God. If our Christ is merely whittled down to a Christ that fits inside of white, middle-class American culture, then most of us could hardly believe in such a Christ. Out beyond our ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, which are usually self-made, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Talking can't do it anymore. It's like lovemaking. To try to talk about it is to cheapen it or trivialize it. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense anymore. I thank you, Sister Barbara, Father George, all of the missionaries, the Franciscan Mission, for helping us see that what we thought made sense does not make sense anymore because of you.